welcome back to Gaia's Mysterious Corner. We're glad you found your way back here so we can tickle your brain with another thinker. Who are we? Well, I'm glad you asked. I am Gaia, your host.
And I am your co-host, Mellow Man. We're sorry for our absence as of late. We've had some personal matters to take care of, but we're back and better than before.
Before we get to today's episode, we have a small announcement. We are in negotiations with our first sponsor.
Yep, that's right. Our first sponsor. We're not going to say their name on air yet, but anyone interested in sponsoring us can reach us by email at gaiasmysteriouscorner@gmail.com.
So, before we get any further into this, I'll let y'all know I'm having trouble talking today. Okay? Well, thank you. Sorry. So, with the serious stuff out of the way, let's get to our fun. Today we have another spooky story, so to speak. We're going to touch on the Devils Tranpping Ground. Alright, so I imagine many of y'all have heard of the Devils Tranpping Ground.
Well, honestly, this is the first time I've heard of the Devils Tranpping Ground, so this is a little bit of an interesting study, so to say.
Well, I grew up where, not too far, but a bit of ways from where this is at. The Devils Tranpping Ground is located in Harper's Crossroad region in Bear Creek, North Carolina. If you Google it, it shows up as a campground, but it is in fact on private property. The Devils Tranpping Ground is local mythology.
It appears the mystery of the Devil's Tranpping Ground has always been part of North Carolina mythology. However, all stories must have a beginning, and many would be surprised to discover written accounts dating back to before the founding of the United States itself.
In short, it seems likely the legend of the Devil's Tranpping Ground predates the American Revolution. Some say it's about a 12-foot to 40-foot wide circle. That's a pretty big circle.
Yeah.
Where nothing grows within it. The legend dates back to 1882. Yes, 1882. And that span, that's a very big span. 12 foot to 40 foot. I mean, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's big. A lot of people got gardens bigger than that, but that's beside the point. Anyway, for centuries, locals have wondered over the mystery of unchanging dead soil surrounding the Devil's Tranpping Ground. Still, it seems the spot may have even more mysteries, such as when did the legend first begin, when was the trapping ground discovered, and how did it gain such fame? Exploring the myths and origins of the Devil's Tranpping Ground in North Carolina raises some eerie and spooky stories dating back centuries.
Well, that's a long ways to go. It's to be said that the devil comes to walk or dance in it. It's also said that animals will not cross the circle. People have gone on to say that if items are placed within the circle, that within it, come the next morning, it is thrown out. They find it thrown out of the circle.
So anything that anybody puts in the circle, come the next morning, it's thrown out of the circle. Anything they put in there.
Anything. You could put anything, like a chair, anything. It's going to get thrown out. So, and it's to say that the reason being is so the devil has his space to walk or dance out his frustrations. Some people have gone on to say when this happens that they have gone on to see glowing eyes in the middle of the circle. Didn't say what color of eyes, just glowing eyes in the middle of the circle.
But see, that raises a question in my mind. Okay, you see, yeah, if light reflects on an animal's eyes, they're gonna glow.
Right, and I thought the same thing. But then again, you remember now, it stated that animals won't even cross it. So if they're not going to cross it during the day, why would they cross it at night? But then again, I mean...
That's a thinker. That's where you got to think.
There was a reporter that tried to disprove the legend. But... all that we know is, that this person heard footsteps. Well, who's to say that, the footsteps he didn't hear might have been an animal's footsteps. Or, another person coming to visit the Devils Tranpping Ground. At that moment, still, they saw glowing eyes. I mean, come on.
Okay. So, we're going to do a little bit of tracing the written history. And we're going to go back as far as I could find, which was back in the 1800s, is as far back as I could find any written history on the Devils Tranpping Ground. And that was just so y'all know, this was just a light dive into the Devils Tranpping Ground.
It really
this
was
supposed to be a short episode.
This was supposed to be one of my many episodes that I had come up with. And I did some research. But... it just didn't feel complete for me. So Mello went ahead and did some more deep dive for me.
Yeah, and this still isn't deep enough. I feel that there's a lot deeper of a dive that could be done on this, but this is what we got so far for like a mini episode. So, in 1956, the Charlotte Observer ran an article about the State Highway Department making a route to make finding the Devils Tranpping Ground easier for travelers.
Nice.
According to the article, for years the hallowed ground was only visited by locals, but a North Carolina writer named John Hardin wrote a book about the Tramping Ground, drawing a wider level of fame to the spooky space.
And I've actually seen that book. If I'm not mistaken, I think my mom has that book. That brought a flood of sightseers to rural Chatham County in search of this place, said the article. In 1955, the State Highway Department, seeing the popularity and tourism potential, put up directional signs marking the route and labeling the tramping ground. However, many of these signs appear to be gone today.
I'm sure people over the years stole them just as, put in your room as one of them things. That was a big grunge thing back in the 90s. Let's put a street sign on our wall and it's cool.
And that really was a big thing, which now it's not something I ever did, but, I actually know some adults now that would take a sign, especially if it had their name or something on it, and put it in their garage, their bedroom, something like that, even to this day.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get that, but it become a nuisance for a lot of things, people taking the street signs with their names and stuff on it. I get the irony, I guess you would say, or the comedic value of something like that. But at the same time, that's marking a street. Somebody needs to know where that's at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got it. Back then, it was the cool thing. So.
Yeah, it really was.
But could it have been the site of a fire ring, an Indian shrine, or a ceremonial ground? A salt lick frequented by deer.
Yeah.
The site of an old cane mill or clay mixing plant where horses or oxen traped a path as they turned the machinery. Why has it lasted so long? Why is it the only place of its kind in the peaceful Carolina countryside?
You know, I'm glad we did this because this is a thinker. That really does make you think.
Now, in the 1940s, scientists just can't leave nothing alone, ever.
No, they really can't.
So, in the 1940s, scientists attempt to test the soil at the tramping ground.
So, was there any salt there?
Any what?
Like you said, the salt lick or something like that.
Oh,
Anything
okay.
trace of animal or anything?
We're going to get into that, and they'll tell you I'll give you what they say their conclusion of it was.
Okay.
Because I don't quite understand their conclusion, but I can grasp it.
Okay.
Only a few years ago, in our modern era, scientists were still running tests on the soil in an attempt to solve the mystery by conducting soil tests. W.A. Bridges Laboratory in Wilson ran tests, then still flummoxed sent samples along to Dr. I.E. Mills, director of the Soil Testing Division of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture.
Okay. So tests determined that the soil was sterile, and newspapers called the mystery halfway solved.
I love how they said that. Halfway solved. How can it be halfway? That ain't even a quarter of the way solved, people.
Right. Halfway solved. Okay.
But they acknowledge even those tests did not determine why the strange circle of sterile soil exists, nor why it has persisted for centuries. Knowledge of this place of mystery dates back the years of recorded history. Back in the days when indigenous tribes roamed the land before Columbus set foot upon the New World. The Devils Tranpping Ground, it seems, was sacred to the indigenous tribes. They used the spot for ceremonial rites.
Okay. Ceremonial rites. Thought through, though it's not clear where the newspaper sourced its information relating the mysterious circle to indigenous tribes, that theme continued throughout written history.
Some legends even said treasure was buried beneath the subsoil, and its presence may be what's causing the soil to be sterile.
Treasure, huh? What kind of treasure? The spot is still shrouded in mystery, concluded the article.
So even though scientists tested the soil and they run all this to try to get the results, they still don't know.
Wow.
Imagine that. Science doesn't know.
Well, I mean, science don't really know everything.
Okay, now we go back just a little bit further. We're into the 1930s. And in the 1930s, apparently there was a great shadowy beast that guarded the tramping grounds.
A beast. A shadowy beast.
Yes. Even in 1930, newspapers were publishing stories about the generational legend. The Chatham Record wrote, "For more than 100 years and how much longer no one knows, this spot has not materially changed appearance."
In the 1930s, however, a new wrinkle appeared in the story. A great black beast that chases hunters and their dogs away. The legend of this beast has seemingly not survived in more modern
iterations
of the tale.
I had to help her on that one, guys. Just had to. I couldn't leave her hanging on that one.
And I have my own notes of what I wanted to say, but y'all, I can't speak. I'm sorry.
There is a story current of how coon and possum hunters and their dogs have been on more than one occasion chased from the vicinity of the Devils Tranpping Ground by a ferocious beast said to resemble a black bear.
So it resembles a black bear. It's chasing coons and possums and hunters.
Well, it says coon and possum hunters and their dogs. So hunters and dogs.
Okay, but I'm saying they're chasing the hunters are like the coons and possums. Okay, I got what you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah, coon hunters, possum hunters.
My brain just went.
Yeah.
I'm telling y'all, I'm having issues. I don't understand.
Okay, so we've heard a little bit about the Devils Tranpping Ground. Now, something that is related to the Devils Tranpping Ground that has just kind of poof disappeared from all of this, apparently. We're back in 1905. It's a lost mystery called the Devil's Track.
Huh, the Devil's Track. Did I even say that right?
Yeah, but hearing that, you're thinking of like a track, right?
Yeah, like you'd run track.
No, it's not that type of track. And that's where it gets a little trippy for some people. In 1905, a story was released in the Carolina newspaper entitled Weird Tale of a Fishing Frolic. Not of fish caught, but of sight seen. The tale was written by G.W. Pascal.
Okay. We visited a much greater wonder which presents some phenomenon which is also ascribed to his satanic. It is, however, I want to say this word today because I can't talk. Majesty, and known as the Devils Tranpping Ground. There is a legend that an Indian chief is buried here, and the chief's tribe brought earth in blankets from beyond the deep river and planted it in wiregrass.
This is probably a true story, for with my knife I dug up some of the earth in the circle. Pascal describes roughly 2 inches of soil being bluish gray, looking markedly different from the soil outside the circle, so it is evident that the earth was brought here. He said treasure hunters also visited the area often. Pascal also described another nearby place known as the Devil's Track, an enormous stone which he described as hundreds of thousands of years old and placed under immense layers of pressure. Yet here in it is a track such as a barefoot child would make in soft mud.
Wow. In modern age, the mythology of the Devil's Tranpping Ground has remained popular, but the legend of the Devil's Track is not nearly as well known.
Even further back, an article from 1882 refers more overtly to the indigenous tribes which likely still lived in the area. He wrote that they have all a superstitious dread of the place, and it was with difficulty that I succeeded in getting one of them to visit the place with me for the purpose of digging into it. After getting about 3 feet and finding nothing, he was so impressed with the supernatural origin that he refused to go any further.
The author compares this place to Feeble Fairy Walks in Ireland and says the Old North State is not without its curiosity.
In 1925, a 74-year-old man born in 1851 said his grandfather, who would likely have been born in the early 1800s or even the late 1700s, said the spot looked unchanged from when he first saw it decades ago.
Oh, wow.
In 1882, another article referenced people nearly 100 years old who remembered seeing the tramping ground and hearing stories of it when they were children, possibly as far back as the 1780s. That would mean even settlers prior to the founding of America could have been aware of this legend, and it may go back even further.
Wow. That, just being a small, I guess, jump into this, I really hope all of our listeners would dig more into this for themselves. Because this, like I said, this was supposed to be a mini episode, but
I mean, it still was a mini episode considering, you know, we've done episodes that were close to 45 minutes. And this was 20 minutes. Probably going to be about 25 by the time we get done with everything. But it's pretty good for a mini episode.
But, like I said, our researching was on our own. You know, I do some, Melon does some. Sometimes we come together, like on this one. There's going to be a story or two where it's just one of us that does the research.
Yeah, like the next one that we're going to do, I've got just a little bit of polishing to do on it, and it'll be ready to record and upload and all that good jazz.
For the next big episode.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy episode, and it's going to be on a mixture. It's between Tennessee and North Carolina.
Okay. Well, with that said, I am grateful that y'all have been here today with us. Hopefully we're giving you something to really consider and think about.
And we hope that you guys find your way back around to us again and listen in for that next episode.
Until next time, y'all. Bye.
Bye, guys.